Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Before I Go podcast. Have you ever heard the expression, a closed mouth don't get fed? Of course you have. What comes to mind when you hear it? In the literal sense, it would mean that in order to get food or nourishment, you'd have to open your mouth. In the figurative sense, I take it to mean that if you want something or need something, ask for it. Keeping in mind that simply asking won't guarantee that you will receive. However, not asking certainly guarantees that you won't. Why do I bring this up? Well, as you know, I'm journeying through my Bible in 2022, and in Genesis, the 18th chapter, I'm reading about how Abraham intercedes for Sodom. According to the scripture, the Lord knew that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah were depraved and their sin was very grave. And the plan was to destroy everything and everyone. Abraham asked God, "Would you destroy the righteous with the wicked? If there were 50 righteous people, couldn't you spare the city for their sake?" The Lord said, "Okay. If there are 50 righteous, then I'll spare the city." Abraham then asked, "What if there are 45?" And he continued asking until he got down to 10. And the Lord said, "I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. God changed his mind because Abraham opened his mouth. Instead of destroying everything and everyone, he said he would compromise for the sake of 10 righteous people. How many times have you been in a situation where things could have gone differently if you had just opened your mouth? What if it's time for your performance review and your salary increase isn't what you think it should be, but you didn't say anything, not realizing that everything is negotiable? If you had opened your mouth and made a good argument, then maybe, just maybe, the number would have gone up. What if your significant other repeatedly does something that bugs the heck out of you, but you never say anything because you don't want to rock the boat? You don't like confrontation, not realizing that this particular thing isn't a big deal to them and they wouldn't have a problem stopping. But since they can't read your mind, they don't know. So instead of opening your mouth, you suffer in silence. What about that wedding you went to, and when the preacher asked if anyone had a reason why the two people shouldn't be wed, and you had a reason but didn't open your mouth? Then you watched the person you love marry someone else. Okay, that last one was a stretch, but you know what I mean. I have 2 children. One has no problem opening their mouth and asking for whatever, and the other one never asks for anything. I told them both that a closed mouth will not get fed. I may not always give the answer that you're looking for, but you'll never know unless you open your mouth. Don't get me wrong, this message is definitely for me because I am the queen of not asking for help. Historically, I'll either find a way to do something myself or it just won't get done. And because I get such a huge sense of satisfaction when I complete a task without help, it stops me from asking. I own that, and I honestly plan to work on it. I mean, I went years, literally years, with a leaky faucet in my kitchen until I couldn't take it anymore. I planned to fix it myself, and I casually mentioned it to my sister, and she immediately offered up her husband's help. I honestly almost turned it down, but I knew I would be going into unknown territory under that sink, and he knew what he was doing, so I accepted the help. Turns out, I would have never been able to complete that job alone. And even though I didn't directly ask for help, it still counts because I did open my mouth. Back to Abraham. There are 2 things I want to point out. First of all, Abraham felt comfortable opening his mouth because he had a relationship with God. God made a covenant with Abraham and told him he would be the father of all nations. God told Abraham to go, just go to a land that I'll show you. And in faith, Abraham went. God told him that he would make Abraham's name great, You see, they knew each other. Secondly, even though they knew each other and had this relationship, Abraham was not confused about who he was talking to when he interceded. He said to the Lord, I, who am but dust and ashes, have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Meaning, when you decide to open your mouth, use wisdom. If you have a specific request of someone, make sure you have a relationship with them. In other words, none of us can travel this world alone. Take the time to develop and cultivate real relationships with people. I mentioned before about a person in my life who only contacted me when they needed money. Had we had a real relationship, I would not have had a problem fulfilling their request. But we didn't. So I didn't. And I don't feel any type of way about that. Also, when deciding to make a request, do it humbly. Don't bust in and act like people owe you something because they do not. And don't ask with the attitude that you really don't need them. Abraham was humble and he opened his mouth and God changed his mind. Opening your mouth does not make you weak. It makes you human. And I'm telling you, more times than not, you will find that the people in your life want to help you. They want the best for you. Think of it as a form of self-care. You have been carrying that load alone for far too long. Ask for help and be brave enough to accept the help. Well, those are my pair of pennies. Thank you so much for listening. But before I go, let me share this with you from Abhishek Ratna. Take the risk to ask for whatever you need and want. If someone says no, you'll not lose anything. If someone says yes, you have a lot to gain. I'll see you next time.